Welcome, Bronco Nation, to my post-game review of Boise State versus Wyoming. Boise State went up to Laramie and got a win. Got a win in the very cold and wind, 17-9. Great win for Boise State to go up there, play a very competitive, very tough matchup throughout the game. Boise State prevailed. They showed a lot of grit and determination in all phases, really. We're going to talk about it. We're going to give a grade to each of the phases: offense, special teams, defense, how they did. We're going to look at the three keys to the game, and then we're going to just kind of summarize looking forward. Boise State, what does this weekend mean for Boise State going forward? So let's start right off. We've got a lot to cover here, so let's jump right into it. So first off, offense grade going to be a C+ for the offense. Offense overall actually played pretty well, especially considering the conditions. If we factor in purely with the conditions as well, determine it based on conditions, then it'd be probably closer to an A. But this is when we factor these in, we don't consider the weather, we don't consider conditions, we just consider how did the offense play purely based on the standard day. How did they play? So C+ overall for the offense. Well, the good things that they did was really great to see Van Buren playing great again. We had Halani out there for most of the game, but he was limited in his action. Van Buren got the start in this. Halani was limited in his action. He ended up getting hurt again towards the end of the game there in the third quarter, I think it was. Looked like he tweaked his knee again, and he was on the sideline. So hopefully he'll be back. It was great to see him back out there. He didn't look 100% necessarily. It's hard conditions. No one really looked 100% on the snow. Hopefully he'll be back next week when we take on San Jose State. If he's not, however, Van Buren has really shown that he is able to take on the load. Early in the season, really earlier to midway through the season, Van Buren was carrying the ball. He didn't look competent in the backfield, but since the Hawaii game, there has been a resurgence, a revival for Van Buren. He has looked really good. Not Halani good, but he has looked good and capable of carrying that load, especially today in bad conditions where it's just a pound it up the middle, run it through, which is really Van Buren's style, run it up, power running. He had a great game, 25 carries for 79 yards and a touchdown in what was very, very rough conditions. Great, really great game. He was breaking tackles. He was maneuvering. It was early in the first drive. He had a great third down conversion where he slipped a tackle in the backfield and he juked a guy and spun into the third down for a first down. He looked really good. He had a couple of long 10-plus yard runs. And he had speed, he had acceleration, a lot of things that we didn't see earlier in the year. He is now coming into his own. He's proving to be a very competent back for Boise State back there. So that was really great to see. Another real highlight was Bachmeier. Now, he only had 19 of 28 for 181 yards, a touchdown and an interception, but we'll talk about the interception here in a second. But however, coming back from 3 weeks off and only having played 3 games all year, I thought that he'd look a lot rustier because he didn't really have a lot of momentum coming into this game. He was just starting to establish himself. And then when he did, we had the 3-week break because the 2 games got canceled. And then coming in this weather, I really expected Bachmeier to struggle, but he looked sharp. He looked on point. The interception really wasn't his fault. Khalil Shakir, I don't know if it was a bad route that was ran or if he had a different route in mind, but Bachmeier was throwing very much a clear out, and Shakir was doing more of a fade to the outside, and the defender ended up cutting underneath. So I think that's more of a miscommunication there. Other than that, though, great night for Bachmeier, especially considering the conditions. To cap it all off, and we're talking about his accuracy, it was a very accurate night. He had an incredible 30-yard plus pass to Khalil Shakir down the sideline, dropped it right in his bed basket over the top of the defender. He was actually pretty well covered, only had just a slight step, put it right where only Shakir could get it, and he went out and got it. Shakir had a great night. We'll talk about him in a second. But Bachmeier looked really good. He had the only pass I would fault him on all night it wasn't even an interception, because that I don't think was really his fault. The only pass I would really fault Bachmeier on all night was pass into the end zone into triple coverage that deflected off the hands of the defender, wasn't even close to the receiver. That could have been a second interception. That could have been really detrimental. It wasn't. It was all good. So he's cleared. It's a clean break. He doesn't have to worry about it. That was really the only bad pass. Other than that, he was getting hit a lot, from especially second quarter onward. Second quarter onward, he took 4 big hits in addition to some minor ones. So he's really getting hit. Their offensive line really struggled today. That was a real overall for Boise State. They were able to clear some holes occasionally against the Wyoming, but not really consistently. And in pass protection, especially the left side, Boise State was missing Octavius Evans, John Bates, and three of its backup quarterbacks, and I believe they were still missing their starting left tackle. I'm not entirely sure on that, so I can't say 100%. I believe they were still missing their starting left tackle, which would explain some of those issues, because the left side, the defenders seemed to be coming through all night, hitting Bachmeier in blindside. Luckily, he never fumbled. He's been really good with ball control and security. But even on the times that he was getting hit, he never threw it up into coverage. He was throwing it out of bounds, or he was taking the hit. He was playing really, really good. Case in point, bad snap by the center, went through his hands over, or I think it went over his head. Either way, was running around back there. Could have been a long sack, but it could have been like a 3rd and 20. Instead, Bachmeier runs back, picks up the pass instead of just falling on it. Picks up the pass, gets his eyes downfield, plants his feet, throws a pass to Shakir, ends up making a 4-yard reception out of it. So versus a 10, 15-yard loss, get a 4-yard reception, setting up a 3rd and short. So just really great play by Bachmeier overall, as far as his accuracy, as far as his decision-making, and as far as staying calm and collected, and staying cool and collected, and a very cool night. There we go. So just overall, I was very impressed by Bachmeier. I think next week, whether we're playing in Boise or in Las Vegas, without the weather conditions, hopefully, that we saw tonight, I think Bachmeier is going to have a really, really good game next week. I'm very excited to see what he can do against San Jose State. Other than that, he one more knock on Bachmeier. Besides that pass into triple coverage, he did have an intentional grounding. I think he thought that there was a running back in the area, which there kind of was, but he spiked it just way too short. That's really the only other knock. Other than that, I thought he played really, really great. Again, talking about Khalil Shakir, great night for him. 5 rushes for 38 yards and 8 receptions for 105 yards. And then I also liked Billy Bowens stepping in. He only had 1 catch coming into this game, but he had 2 catches, both for first downs this game, in key situations to extend drives. Really great to see him coming on. A lot of new receivers or lightly used receivers that are coming into the fold for Boise State and becoming part of the regular offense. It's really great to see the development. Now looking, so I talked about all these great things. Now why the C+? So part of that, the C+, only was able to score 17 points. A lot of drives stalled out. Boise State really should have leaned more on Van Buren in this game. He would get into momentum. He was picking up big chunks of yards, and then Boise State would go to the air. Line wouldn't block. Offensive line was really struggling. Line wouldn't block. Bachmeier wouldn't be able to complete the pass, and the drive would stall out. Boise State really had a lot of missed opportunities. They probably should have won this game by maybe 2 more touchdowns than what they did. So there's a lot of missed opportunities because Boise State was very inconsistent in their approach. Now, their first half, I thought Boise State played very, very nice. It's a shame they couldn't get the ball in at the end on that some little bit of poor clock management, kind of a weird call. They had last play of the game. Boise State had gotten it down to like the 3 or 4 yard line, 2 seconds on the clock, and Boise State went for kind of a floating corner. I think they were really looking for a pass interference call. They weren't really running a legitimate play, it didn't look like. I think it would have been better if they'd run something short, something that had more of a chance, maybe kind of a run pass option where they're running to the outside of the pass, chance to pass either to the tight end or to the back of the end zone, maybe a wide receiver, or run it in themselves. Limited time, they're rushing on the field, they kind of just threw it up, kind of a missed opportunity there. But overall, Boise State in the first half was running a lot of sweeps, a lot of wide receiver sweeps and misdirections, and end arounds, handing it off wide receivers. Khalil Shakir, Riley Smith, and Stephon Cobbs all carried the ball for Boise State in the first half. In the second half, Boise State really lacked creativity in their offense. They kind of just settled down into a grind of kind of a run, pass kind of situation. They only had 2 handoffs to receivers or end arounds in the second half, and one of those was a backward toss and ended up getting tackled in the backfield. So really, all the great first half. If Boise State had played like they did in the first half, I think they would have had a much higher score by chance or a much more cleaner game in the second half. But coaching really seemed to shift more to let's just try to grind it out, which we've seen throughout the season a little bit. Boise State's kind of taken the foot off the pedal in the second half on both offense and defense. So that was really something that I would have liked to see more. Boise State, so that's kind of factors in the C+. The lack of scoring, the inconsistency, the missed opportunities, the lack of creativity, and the offensive line struggles. All of those really hurt Boise State, I think, in this. It didn't end up hurting them as far as losing the game goes, but against a better team such as a 6-0 San Jose State team who has a chance to be ranked in the top 25. Against a team like San Jose State, Boise State's going to need to play a lot better. I think a lot of it was the elements, but the play calling, now that isn't factored into the elements, so that needs to stay consistent and creative and showing the sparks that we know Boise State can throughout the game. So that's for the offense, C+. Defense actually was really, really good. I was very, very happy with the defense today, and solid A for the defense. Boise State's defense has really been the weakest part of its game. Surprisingly, special teams has been excellent this year, even with a brand new freshman kicker and losing a great punter. The offense has been, offense has been really, really good all year, but the defense is the bit that's really struggled to come together, lost a lot of key parts. However, this game, they were excellent. The defense definitely won the game for Boise State. They kept them in the game to let the offense get back on track. At the end of the first half, it was only 10-6. Boise State was able to score another touchdown. They were able to keep, even with only putting up 17 points, which is a season low for Boise State, all year, even against BYU, and it's a low when Boise State has one of their starting, either Sears or Bachmeier, and they scored over 40 points in every single game. To be expected, I think, with the weather. They kept Boise State in this game and allowed them to come out with a win with only scoring 17 points. They held Wyoming to no touchdowns the whole game, only field goals. It was really, really great. They got off to a really hot start. A lot of 3-and-outs in the second half, especially in the second quarter. First quarter, they were kind of inconsistent a little bit on a couple of third downs, but they really turned it around. They played great. They only gave up 3 points in the first half and 6 points in the second half. I didn't feel like they let off at all. That's been a trend for Boise State defense. Play really great defense. They've only allowed about 8 points in the first half, and then take the foot off the pedal. They've allowed about 20. I thought it was 16. That's what I said in my other video. 20.8 points per game in the second half. They've really 8.6 in the first half, 28 points. 20.8 points in the second half. But today, only 6 points. They looked like they were on fire. They were playing lights out all game. There was a couple of Riley Wimpy had a really nice game. And then a couple of the cornerbacks. I got to give a hand to the cornerbacks today. They were on their men all night long. The Wyoming quarterback, L. Williams, when he dropped back to pass, he rarely had any wide receivers open, and he kind of had to throw the ball wide or just kind of try to float it out there. So there should have probably been a couple more picks. Boise State did end up getting one interception in the game. Kaniho almost had a pick that just bounced right off of him, and then Walker almost had a pick that went right past him. He wasn't even looking for the ball. That could have been a pick six if he'd been able to get his hands on that one. But that leads me into the next point I wanted to talk about, because Boise State did have an interception, and it was from Evan Tyler. He's the backup safety, and he had it's his first interception of the game. He had 5 tackles. Coming into this game, he had only played, this is the third game he'd played in, and he'd only had 4 tackles all season coming into this game. And he ends the game, last play of the game for Wyoming. They tried to float it up, just really a desperation play, and he ends up picking it off. It came right to him. It was great. That was really great to see, was the new guy stepping up. Boise State has been very weak as far as defensive strength go. Not defensive strength. What am I trying to say here? Defensive. Having their second string. So depth, that's the word. Boise State's depth has been very weak all season. Their starters have been pretty good, but their second and third string have not played as great. But today, a lot of new guys really stepped up. Isaiah Bagna, I'm not sure if I'm saying that name right, but it's Bagna, Bagna, I think. Defensive end, he'd only played in 3 games and had 3 total tackles coming into this game. We had 4 total tackles, and he had 2 sacks to lead the team this week. So it's really great to see the second string starting to step up for Boise State more. That's going to really help coming up against San Jose State, who's going to really wear Boise State down with a very good offense, very explosive offense. And it's also going to help, of course, going into next season if Boise State can continue to improve, and if they can get their defense up to the level that their offense and special teams have been all season. Boise State could be a very dangerous team next year competing for the New Year's Six. I'm just going to check over here, make sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah, it was a really great game. They only allowed 64 yards passing and 82 yards rushing all game. Bad conditions, but this is a Wyoming team that their strength is the rushing yards. The conditions should have factored into Wyoming's favor. It should have been a game that they were able to dominate on the ground, running game, especially as the Boise State defense has given up over 200 rushing yards per game, but they weren't. Boise State made Wyoming one-dimensional, forced them to try and pass the ball, and they only allowed 82 yards all game, which is a season low for Boise State defense. Outstanding job for the defense as an A. So moving on to the special teams. So special teams they had some incredible highs and incredible lows. Overall, their performance is a C+. But there were some things that could have made it a lot better, and there's some things that could have made it a lot worse, and overall just kind of evened out to a C+. So let's talk about the good first. So Joel Velasquez had a great game, one of his best games. He's had 2 great games back-to-back. He had a great game against Hawaii and had a great game this week. He had 6 punts for an average of 42.5 and a long of 48. He had 1 punt that rolled up inside the 3. Even in the rough conditions, very slippery ball, a lot of weather, of course, out there with all of the snow and the winds. He was methodical, but not too slow. He got the ball and he punted it off, and he never had a ball that went haywire. He never dropped a punt as far as getting it back to him. It never dropped a snap. He looked great all night long, one of his best games. Joel Velasquez has another year with Boise State because he's a senior, but he still maintains eligibility. Joel Velasquez has had a rough career at Boise State, showing incredible talent and ability potential, but also being very inconsistent. But the last couple of games, he has been great. All of his punts the last couple of games have been really, really good. If he can continue to improve himself throughout the rest of the season here, going to the Mountain West Championship game and hopefully a bowl game, and then into the off season and going into next year, with the skill that he has, if he can get more consistent like he has been, he could have a record-breaking season next year, because he is really a great punter as far as having the abilities. It's just give out the consistency. Jonah Dalmez, I cannot say enough great things about this young man. Incredible. As a true freshman coming in, the way he is 100% on the year. I believe he's 5 of 5 now. 100% on the year. He has looked incredible. He's been able to hit the medium range to the longer range kicks. He hasn't had a 50-yard or anything like that, but he has been incredibly accurate no matter what, left, right hash, middle of the field. I know he's only kicked five kicks, I believe. It's either 4 or 5. So he's only had a few opportunities, but he's been lights out in every single one of them. And today, in the rough weather with variable winds and snow coming down on a slippery surface, he had a beautiful 34-yard kick to give Boise State that extra 3 points to get him to 10-6 coming into the end of the first half there. He probably would have made a second kick, but for a muff snap, which we'll talk about here in a second. But really great job by John Dalmas. The last thing that we want to talk about as far as the great things that Boise State did this week for special teams was blocked punt. They had another blocked punt. Boise State now has 5 blocked punts, which, according to all the stats that I can find, I'm pretty sure is the most blocked punts that Boise State has had in the season. Now, you can't quote me on that because I wasn't able to go through every single year and look at it, but I know that 2008 and 2009, we had 4 blocked punts in both of those, and at the time, both of those were record highs for Boise State as far as FBS level goes, and I don't think that we've taught them. I know we had 1 year, I think it was in 2016, that we had a lot of blocked punts, and we might have had 6 that year. But regardless, Boise State is playing in a COVID year where they've only played 6 games. So right now, Boise State is now 5-1. So they've only played 6 games. They didn't have a lot of an offseason to practice, and Boise State, still only having played 6 games, has 5 blocked punts. The special teams, I cannot say enough. We all remember, I think it was a couple of years ago, where Boise State their special teams were absolutely atrocious, and it has been a complete 100% reversal. Last year was pretty good performance by special teams, and this year the special teams performance has been back to that carrying the hammer pride, back to one of the Boise State. Chris Peterson always talked about how he put his best players on special teams because he thought that was one of the most important, I think he said the most important element of the game. So he would always put his best players out there, and he wanted players to want to think of it as a reward, a mark of honor and pride to be able to be on that unit. And I think Boise State is back into that mindset. A couple of years there where they were kind of finding their way again on special teams, but Boise State has done an incredible job in turning around, and they have an outstanding unit. So that's the good. But there's something that made it a C+, couple things that made it a C+, so let's talk about that. Overall, the kick return coverage was okay, but not great. As far as coverage unit overall, kick returns and punt returns. Only 1 kick return allowed of 19, but they had 3 punt returns, and they allowed an average of 9.3 punt returns on that, and they had a long of 15. So not great as far as the punt return coverage goes, especially on a slippery surface like this. They probably could have had a better job. And as far as returning it themselves, no kick returns, and only an average of 6 yards on punt returns and a long of 12. So not a great not a bad performance, but not in a great performance like we're used to seeing from Boise State, and their coverage unit, which has really improved throughout the year after allowing a couple bad ones against Utah State, has really improved going forward here. So Boise State could have done better on that, but there were that wouldn't have affected the rankings that much as far as the not rankings, but the grade overall. The things that brought it down to a C+ is that they had the muffed snap on the field goal. that just wasn't handled correctly, kind of bounced around and tried to run a scramble play and ended up getting sacked on that. So that was a big one. And the second one, which was a really perplexing decision, muffed punt, Avery Williams, ball's floating back, winds are blowing it everywhere. He tried to kind of track back and catch it behind himself and muffed the punt. He should have just let it go at that point. Probably would have, Boise State would have taken over about the 50 or 45. So he should have just let it go. Instead, he tried to get it, muffed the punt. Wyoming took over, really, especially after a great performance by the defense at that point to stop Wyoming, almost get a safety, push them back deep in their end zone. That was another thing, is that Boise State had that blocked punt, which was great. And then after the blocked punt, they didn't really go after it the rest of the game. There was one other time that they went after that, but after that they kept setting up for the return. And especially when Boise State had downed the ball at the 3-yard line and forced Wyoming to kick from inside of their own 5, their very limited space, they should have done. You're not going to set up a great return with this wind and this weather, wind and the weather and the snow. Boise State should have just gone all out and tried to block it. And when you have bad conditions like this, the worst thing you can do is try to set up a return, because you're not going to have much mobility as a return man. The return man is going to have difficulty catching it to begin with, and the last thing he needs to have on his mind is where he's going to go after he catches the ball. And you're also going to have difficulty actually getting down to block for him, because, I mean, it's just slippery conditions overall. But the team that's punting is going to have a lot of issues actually trying to handle the ball and keep hold of it and get that ball off. And the defense, the punt block unit, which isn't truly trying to maneuver, they're just running straight at the punter, they're going to have the advantage there as far as getting down and blocking the punt. Boise State could have had an opportunity to block maybe 2 or 3 more punts in this game. 1 or 2 more for a total of 2 or 3 punts in this game if they kept on the pressure, especially after being successful in the first one. It was very surprising to see Boise State drop back. So part of it, the downgrade here for the overall grade is the muffed punt, the muffed field goal, and then just the changing in the coaching philosophy that ended up causing Boise State to be a little bit less successful in the second half there. And that was something we saw both of them. I've already mentioned that for the offense and now also for the special teams unit. But overall, Boise State got the win. That's what matters. C+ for the offense, A for the defense, and C+ for the special teams. So, how did Boise State do against my keys to the game? So the first key was to take it slow and shake off the rust. I thought that was an excellent, solid A. Boise State didn't seem to be going too fast or trying to do too much. They weren't trying to stretch the ball deep down the field. They gave Bachmeier a lot of easy underneath passes. The out route, whenever he wanted it, was open. Shakir had 3 or 4 catches in the out route. Really nice. They didn't really work in the screen very much. They tried one screen, but ended up spiking it down. But they really nice short passes. The pass to Helani to get it in for the touchdown was a pretty easy, the running back out of the flat, short pass. Really nice job of working Bachmeier into the game, letting him get into a flow, and then establish the accuracy, which we saw throughout the rest of the game. So really excellent job. Even the interception, like I said, wasn't Boise State trying to do too much. It really was. It was about a 15-yard out. Wasn't a bad pass, and it really wasn't a bad play call. It was just a bad route run by Shakir, which he made up for the rest of the game. So A for them, for taking it slow and shaking off the rust. Key 2, make Wyoming one-dimensional. A+, incredible job. Wyoming had no running game. All game long, they had no running game. Valladay only had 11 carries for 59 yards. He was their leading running back. T. Smith only had 11 carries for 42 yards. And Williams, the Wyoming quarterback, he had 10 carries for -10 yards. Boise State did a great job all game of stopping the quarterback option. It was never there. He only had I think his long on quarterback option was like 3 or 4 yards. Great job. I don't know if they were running it with a spy or if it was just a blitz package or great eye awareness. I really wasn't paying attention so much to the formation that stopped it each time, but they did a great job of coming in there and stopping the quarterback run and the running game overall. There were no rushing touchdowns, no touchdowns at all, but no rushing touchdowns for Wyoming, and only 64 yards passing. So they forced them. They locked up the running game. There were only a couple. I think Valladay had like one long run, like 25, something like that, where he was able to, some bad tackling. But Boise State really locked it down the rest of the time. It was very consistent throughout the game. Excellent job. Don't let up in the second half. A+. A+ performance, Boise State. Boise State, like I said, they have yet to have, until this game, a complete game defensively. However, today was an outstanding job defensively. Boise State in the first half only allowed 3 points, 1 field goal, and in the second half they only allowed 6 points, which was 2 field goals. They allowed 68 yards in the first half, overall total yards, and only 78 yards in the second half. And the biggest thing as far as stopping the run game, which was incredible, 52 rushing yards in the first half, only 30 rushing yards in the second half. And this is a Wyoming team. They've only thrown for 800 yards, right about 800 yards this year. This is a Wyoming team that has emphasized the ground game. Like I said, coming into it, Wyoming running backs that had 491 yards rushing, 446 for Smith, 491 for Walladay, and then Williams rushed for 110 yards for a total of 15 touchdowns in the rushing game. Coming into it, that's just from those three. There were some other rushers who had some success as well from Wyoming. That's just their top three rushers. But today, no rushing touchdowns. 52 yards rushing in the first half, 30 in the second half. Outstanding performance in a game that should have favored Wyoming as far as the conditions go. Boise State was the better team, but the conditions should have favored Wyoming. Outstanding job of the defense. I can't say enough about how great the defensive performance was today. So that's it. Boise State, we had a C+ on offense, A on defense, C+ on special teams, and we just graded the 3 keys to the game. So, summary overall, looking at this, so Boise State got the win. That's what's important. It wasn't a stylish win. It wasn't a stylish win. A lot of these games against Wyoming are very rough. I mean, I'm sure we all remember the win in the Fiesta Bowl season, 2006. Boise State came in. I think the end of that game was 17-10, ended on an interception. And there's been a couple other close games. Even when Kellen Moore was here back in 2011, the first half, we ended up winning by a pretty significant margin. But in the first half, I think we were only up by a touchdown or so. I mean, he had that Hail Mary pass to Matt Miller, I believe it was. So Wyoming has really played us tough, and of course, we have a loss to them. So they are a team to be respected. We don't think of them as rivals, but they do. So they think of us as rivals. So they're coming into this game with a big chip on their shoulder and trying to knock us off like they have done before. But we went out and we got the win, and that's what matters. It wasn't stylish, but we got the win. That's what matters. And it really doesn't matter overall now because Coastal Carolina won today against Troy, and now Boise State has no path to the New Year's Six. Coastal Carolina had lost to Troy and then beaten, and then they would have fallen out of the top 25, and then beaten Louisiana Lafayette, then they would have fallen out of the top 25 if Cincinnati somehow found a way into the playoffs, which they still have a chance for it. The LSU game is on right now, and they are looking like they might upset Florida, which would really help out a lot, but there's still a chance for Cincinnati to get in that way. If Cincinnati was to get in and Coastal had lost today and then beaten Louisiana Lafayette in their championship game, Boise State might have had a shot to go to the New Year's Six that way. It was low odds, but now they're 0, which is fine, which is okay. This is a COVID year. The only reason that we lost to BYU, that I would say, I mean, you can't say the only reason, but the probable reason that we lost to BYU is because we were on a 4th-string quarterback because of COVID. This whole year is going to have a massive asterisk next to it for whatever any team accomplishes. But if a team can beat those odds, can go out and have a great season, even with a rough Coastal year like this, Boise State is really having a great year, even with COVID and everything else, canceling games and whatnot. Boise is just fantastic. So what Boise State is doing right now is they're just trying to finish this season strong. They are going to be going to a Mountain West Championship game for the 4th straight, not 4th time overall, but 4th straight year. Boise State's going to go in the Mountain West Championship game. And they have a chance to win it for only the 5th time. So 4th straight year in a row that they're going, and only a chance to win it for the 5th. They've won it in 2012. That was a tie, 3-way tie between Boise State, San Diego State, and Fresno State. They won it outright in 2014, 2017, and 2019. And this would be a chance for Boise State to go out there and win it. 2 years, first time they'd have won it 2 years consecutively. Haven't done that yet. So it'd be a great job, Boise State, to establish their dominance. And again, one other thing, for the 2nd year in a row, Boise State is undefeated in regular season conference play against Mountain West competition. So excellent job. They have a chance to go into San Jose State and win it outright. So that would be 2 years in a row that Boise State's going to be completely undefeated against Mountain West competition. So be a great opportunity for Boise State to go out there and get that win. And actually, you know what? I think that this is the 3rd year in a row. And now I've got my stats mixed up, rumbling around my head. I think it's the 3rd year in a row that they're undefeated regular season because 3 years ago they lost in the Mountain West Championship game. And I think that was the conference loss. No, they lost to Fresno State. No, that was 2019. Sorry, I've got all this running around. The important stat is that if they have a chance, if they win against San Jose State in the Mountain West Championship game, they have a chance to go have 2 straight years in a row of winning the conference outright, being undefeated in conference play, regular and postseason. That's the important stat. The other one, You guys can look up for yourself, or I'll look it up for my 380s of the game. Get an accurate number for you guys there. I apologize for that. But Boise State probably going to be in Nevada for the Mountain West Championship game. San Jose State is 6-0. Boise State's 5-1 now, so they're going to have to look at that and see if Boise State's high enough in the computer rankings. Don't know if they're going to be, especially without the dominant win tonight. But, that's okay. Boise's, Nevada's probably going to be a little bit of a nicer location as far as being a little bit warmer versus a cold Boise State stadium with no fans, pretty much. So that's okay. It doesn't really make that much of a difference as fans aren't really allowed in the stadium. And all of these players, all the seniors, are able to return next year to play on the blue again. So if they want to play on the blue again, they have that option. They have the opportunity to return. So this is not they have not played their last game on the blue, or it's up to them whether they played their last game on the blue. They should be able to return. Hopefully, Boise State gets Helani, Bates, and the 3 quarterbacks that were out this week. Because Boise State was without Sears and the other 2 backup quarterbacks, Finnegan and whoever the other one is, 4th string quarterback, or 5th string quarterback in that case. So Chase Cord was kind of reactivated onto the roster today to play as a 2nd string. So hopefully Boise State can get those 3 quarterbacks back to really back up Hank Bachmeier there and give Boise State a little bit more security. So there's a couple of things going on this week that hopefully Boise State is able to overcome and get back going forward. But it really is a great way to end the regular season, Boise State, with a win over Wyoming. They are 5-1, undefeated in Mountain West or in conference play. They're undefeated in conference play this year. So it's really a great year overall for Boise State. And the push now, without being able to get into the New Year's Six, the push now is just to finish the season strong, get that Mountain West Championship trophy, which is the big goal now, and then also potentially to go to a bowl game. But biggest overall is Boise State, if they can finish in the rankings. If they can finish in the rankings, they will almost definitely start next season in the rankings because they don't lose anybody potentially. And players can choose to leave, but Boise State potentially isn't going to lose any players next year. So if Boise State can push forward, I'll release my top 25 rooting guide for next weekend. That's still important because while Boise State may not have a New Year's Six to look forward to, they do have the potential to get back into the rankings, to finish ranked, which would set them up really great for next year. This whole season is almost like a practice year for next year where Boise State is going to be a very, very dangerous team. So thank you for watching my video. We a lot of things to go over. Hit the 30-minute mark again. Most of my post-game review videos have been between 20 and 30 minutes. So hit the 30-minute mark again, but there was a lot to talk about. I really enjoyed this conversation. So hopefully Boise State's going to, hopefully nothing happens between now and then, COVID and everything like that, but all things being equal, Boise State will be playing next week in their 4th in a row Mountain West Championship game against San Jose State. Keep an eye out. Join Bronco Nation Updates page, over 8,000 members, and keep an eye out on that page for any updates about whether or not Boise State's going to be hosting the game. Again, the most important thing, whether Boise State's playing it at home or at Las Vegas, is just going out there and getting a win against a good San Jose State team, getting that would have been a rematch, but game got canceled, but luckily we get to go play a good San Jose State team, undefeated. It'd be great to go in there and knock them off. So thank you for watching this video. It was a great game for Boise State. Glad to have football back after 3 weeks. It's good to see Boise State back out there. Excellent game for the Broncos, going out there in rough conditions and really playing well. Thank you for watching this video. If you like these videos, make sure to like and subscribe. And I'll make sure to keep an eye out for my top 25 rooting guide and 3 keys to the game video. And also I'll be releasing on Sunday evening. I'll also be releasing maybe Monday, I'll be releasing my Boise State alumni in the NFL stat recap, and I'll go through all of their different plays. So thank you so much for watching this video, and as always, go Big Blue.